are delighted to have with us today Hal Wolf, which is the CEO and president of HIMSS, which is probably the most important organization out there in the world dealing with IT and technology in healthcare, and actually having the largest conference that I know of globally annually that has the best and brightest people coming in physically. And in times before we had Corona, actually people met and were talking to each other in the same halls. So when that happened, Hal was actually in charge of having one of the largest conferences of this magnitude in the world. Is that true, Hal?
Yeah, actually it is, and thank you for the introduction. The HIMSS Global Conference is truly the largest conference in the world focused on digital health. Last year, we were poised to have over 45,000 people join us in Orlando, Florida. Obviously, we canceled the conference prior to just a week ahead of time because of the pandemic. But we're looking forward to having everyone back this coming August in 2021 in Las Vegas. So we hope by then that the pandemic will be in a much better spot and everyone can come back together to share their best practices and thought leaderships, and frankly, touch on a number of the subjects that will be hitting today and tomorrow in conjunction with FutureMed.
Fantastic. And I do think that we have in front of us today some of the best minds out there that will be sharing with us insights from what they went through and some foresight into what's about to be. And we have 3 sessions with us today looking at different aspects of where we were and where we're going to. We're going to touch upon in the first session on some of the crisis management experience that people have went through, leaders, political leaders, epidemiological leaders of different countries, but also business leaders looking into what they've done. And then we will have a session that's focused on technology and how technology comes to the rescue, something that you will be also speaking about today. And we will end with a look at science and how can we accelerate science in order to meet all of these challenges. So I think that you have been involved in all of these 3 in different capacities in your professional life, right? In some of these, we have crossed paths.
We really have, and have been very fortunate to be engaged in healthcare for nearly 20 years. And many of those years in operations, both from an IT point of view as a CIO and from an operations leader. And I think you ran a couple of critical points. One is that we've been in a system across the globe that has been pressurized because of the pandemic. And the question now is, how do we take the learnings of this pandemic, our shortcomings, our gaps, and what we did well, and turn it into a future view of where we need to take healthcare and care delivery.
And I do think that, the fact that Clalit and HIMSS came together to make this event work the way it does, I think it is something that is really built into the fabric of these 2 organizations of taking insights and being in the forefront of where technology might take us on making an impact on people's lives, how technology in healthcare cannot just remain a theoretical construct or just a scientific construct, but actually bring science and the most advanced technology to the bedside and measuring the impact. And I think that actually this marriage of these 2 organizations is really, I think, classic for this type of event. What do you think?
Well, I think you're spot on. HIMSS has over 80,000 members globally, and they're focused on the vision, which is to realize the full health potential of every human everywhere. And the mission lies in the goals to reform the global health ecosystem through the use of information and technology. I think what we're going to be hearing is how are people utilizing new technologies and access to information in order to take care of individuals differently than we have before. I mean, as you know, in this pandemic, we pretty much had to blow up the classic encounter-based paradigm of health. we had to create the situation where physicians, clinicians, nurse practitioners could, in fact, talk to people not inside the walls of the clinic, but to accelerate areas of telehealth and digital health communications. And we had to do so quickly. And that, frankly, is not the forte of the healthcare ecosystem. It doesn't move quickly. But this time we had to. And I think what we're going to be listening for, and I'm excited to hear, are what some of those changes were. How do we keep the good ones? And how do we accelerate this change of outside in care versus our traditional methodologies of inside out?
Al, it seems that from the program that we have today, that not only we're dealing with a crisis, but we're dealing with a lot of the potential and the opportunities ahead. I think, Ran, many of the speakers here would be talking about experiments you were having at this time with data, with new IT technologies, actually to change the clinical service and the caregiving experience. What do you think, Hal? Did we see a lot of promise here that you would bring later to the medical services? And there's also some kind of a promise from this conference?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. One of the interesting facts when I've talked to healthcare leaders around the world is that we largely combated and continue to combat this particular pandemic through the use of social engineering. We've asked people to stay at home, to wear a mask, to improve hygiene, to stop social gatherings outside with groups of more than 10. So we've been using social engineering to tap down. I think the question we have is that absent of the social engineering, how do we bring those systems forward? How do we use the information, contract tracking or contact tracking, artificial intelligence, new information of monitor at home? How do we begin to deliver care outside so that when we have these types of disruptions, and we will again, we're more prepared from a population health point of view and all the way down to the care of the individual from the convenience of either their home or through a device like their phone.
And as Israel's largest healthcare organization, with all of the challenges we had to go through in the trenches of this event as it unfolded and still unfolds, actually these very days, we really saw the promise being delivered in the fact that the pandemic or the COVID-19 was the great accelerator of digital health in practice. And in many organizations worldwide, and I'm sure you've experienced it with all of the different organizations you're working with, this was one of the most effective facilitators of change that were long-standing and waiting to happen. And this event made it from a potential theoretical promise to something that everybody had to accept, implement, and put it in practice. Have you seen a lot of this happening worldwide?
We have. And in fact, one of the more interesting aspects of it is going to be how do we keep those changes and that acceleration continuing? Some healthcare systems are trying to go back to the old normal. I think that's going to be very difficult. Most healthcare systems are trying to figure out the right level of integration of the new normal, the telehealth, and the acceleration. But also, it's exposed some gaps. It's exposed some gaps in the information they have, put some pressure on our needs for greater interoperability, and to balance our risk against the opportunities that we have to really change the way that we deliver care. So, yes, I think there's a great debate going on in every single country about what can we keep. In the end, this is a massive change management challenge. And at HIMSS, we use the phrase to be the change. And we're really calling on our members and all the systems to embrace this change so that we can get the best out of a very, very difficult situation.
So many leaders listening to us today are actually now being inspired to be the change. We are definitely making the best efforts right now to be the change as we speak. And I think it is now a requisite. It's no longer just, just a nice to have. And I think that the entire world is now treading this path that until then has been walked by fairly few just spearheading organizations. So this event today that we're co-hosting together and that we turned into a reality, I think is going to leave us with so much, I think, material to work with in the coming days and months that are going to be very trying. You know, there's no country that can feel safe that they're now, you know, they got it figured out. They know how it's going to be done. They're there. I think that every country should learn from the experience, including our own here in Israel. I mean, we had it figured out, and then we had the challenges come and hit us right back again once we started to get life into some sort of normalcy. So I think that we all should be very attentive to the lessons learned that we're going to hear in the coming hours, and we should be prepared for the challenges awaiting for us in the coming winter, and actually even through the summer. And I think that we should be thankful to all of these bright, busy, overworked, and leading global figures that have been willing to spend time with us today and to share with us their vision, their work, and their insights. And thank you, Hal, for your friendship for many years and for the collaboration between HIMSS and Clalit that made this event happen, and really for everything that you have been doing. And I want to hear from you, and before then we will begin the session.
Well, thank you again so much for giving me the opportunity to represent HIMSS and to be a part of this really important conference. I agree with you 100%. The challenges have never been larger. The opportunities have never been greater. And we have a chance in this conference to listen truly to world leaders at the healthcare level, at the government level, at agencies across the land that are really going to be able to come forward and give us important insights. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the conference. I can't wait to learn and listen. And from here in the United States, a warm shalom.
Thank you so much, and looking forward to the next conference we're going to have together, where we're going to be in the same room, because, you know, this is coming.